we are so thankful to have Mr. Slava join our staff, me probably above everyone else. So good to have him. I just think he's a really good asset to the ministry. And so we're in a transition period, and he's has had a large learning curve, lots of policies and procedures, classroom procedures, subjects to take over. And so he's now teaching a number of the courses and still has a transition period. Will be transitioning a few things that I'm still doing over to him, where then he has his full workload. But in this process, back about a week and a half ago, there was some concerns that came up amongst some parents in that classroom, wondering what was going on. And I handled that within that classroom and with those parents, and hopefully answered questions. But I'm concerned because apparently there's been some recent chat where those concerns within the class have become topics of discussion outside of the class. And most concerning to me is that apparently words such as unethical or inappropriate have somehow come up in the conversation. And I will just state up front that there's not been anything that I would consider unethical or inappropriate in what Mr. Slava has done. But he's got a transition. He's taught in Russia, and there's things in Russian culture that are okay to do in Russian schools that are different here. And so one of those topics is that we have a school policy that teachers don't put their hands on the students. And so he knew that, but without thinking about it, he did things such as putting his hand on a student's shoulder to get their attention, maybe quietly in the middle of a lesson or a work period, walk up behind them and just touch them on the shoulder to get their attention and maybe get them back on track. I've been, when I first learned about this, I'd been out with him during all the classes, and so I could say firsthand there was, not anything inappropriate, but yet it made some students uncomfortable, and that's because they're not used to that. So that's our school policy. But the touching that took place in and of itself was not unethical behavior, and he's definitely very careful now since it got brought up, and he remembered what our policy was to be careful not to do that. So that was one example of where the concerns lie, and so I think that's been addressed about a week ago, and we're on track with that. And then the taking of some pictures with his cell phone camera. This particular concern is actually not inconsistent with our school policy. We do allow teachers to have cell phones and use them for various things. For example, taking pictures for the yearbook, or maybe using the phone to connect to one of the smart TVs to put images up, or maybe taking photos in the class and posting those to Class Dojo, or even our main school software called Fax. There's places to potentially post in there, although I think most teachers use Class Dojo. Or even using a cell phone as a calculator or a timer. This is not against our school policies, and so he was taking some pictures, but his major goal was trying to fast track himself into getting down everything that he was trying to get down. So when I was teaching, I saw him. He was taking pictures of me, taking pictures of the board. He's taking pictures of what's going on in the class. And so one of the things he did do is take pictures of kids, and then he tried to put their name on that picture so that he could try to learn their names faster. And so, legitimate school purpose, and I really just don't see that as problematic. And there's no widespread policy that all schools have on this. So, from a legal standpoint and ethical standpoint, I don't think there's a problem with this. That doesn't mean that there aren't those that maybe have a difference of opinion on that. But I've looked up and done research on it and looked at it from school standpoints and legal standpoints, and I just don't see that what he did was a problem, and it was helpful to him. And that's the main thing that our teachers are using their phones for, is an aid in their teaching, and that's what he was doing. And I saw all the pictures on his phone, and none of them were inappropriate, and none of them were awkward in any way. So I'm just really hoping that I can diffuse any thoughts about unethical or inappropriate behavior on his part. We're so glad to have him here, and hoping going forward that's going to be very positive, and he's doing a good job out there so far. He's already enhanced some of the classes that I was teaching. He's already enhancing them, and I'm seeing some positive things that he's doing. So since I'm kind of on this type of topic, I figured I'd just address one other thing that happened right before Christmas vacation. Of course, this doesn't have to do with Mr. Slava, but the Thursday right before Christmas vacation, the night before our Christmas parties, at the PTF meeting was brought up a question about how we had conducted the book fair. And the main concern was whether we as a staff had censored the book fair in a way to try to control what parents were letting their kids read. And I'll just say that that wasn't in our thinking at all. We were not, really don't have the mindset of trying to control parents in how they parent. Our school has the philosophy that we are a resource that's available to parents in the education of their children, but not to come into the home and try to manipulate the parents or control how they're doing things. And so obviously in a school setting, there's a lot of different parents, and there's different ways that parents want to parent, and it's pretty much impossible for us to even make attempts to try to sway that. But again, we're a resource, and we're up front with students at the beginning what our school is about, and we're trying to teach the kids a biblical worldview, and trying to put positive things in front of them as part of the curriculum. And that's all we were trying to do with the book fair. So yes, we did vet some of the physical books, but keep this in mind, and I think this is maybe where the negative perception comes in. Many parents were coming in with their kids and looking at the books, but keep in mind that parents had the option of giving money to their child, and some of these kids are pretty young, and would not have been there to help vet the book. So I'm sure there would have been books that maybe your child says, "Oh, that looks really cool," and you would have made the decision, "Yeah, I don't really care for that." It was a secular publisher, a non-Christian publisher, and they had some things that really just we're uncomfortable with as being supportive of a Christian worldview, and so we did vet that. And this was the first time we had tried a book fair like this, and so it was new to us, and we weren't really sure exactly what to expect from the publisher, and so we ended up putting out a little over half of what they had to offer, but we did keep some things aside. And so I see it as a positive first step, and going forward, we perhaps either can combine a second resource to this publisher to put more things out, or maybe look at some other options, especially some that are more Christian based. But I hope it came across as a positive first step in any recent years of doing a book fair, and I hope it didn't leave any kind of a negative taste in our mouth. So maybe it wasn't as big as we hoped, but it still was a positive thing, I think, for kids to be able to look at and maybe add some reading to their collection. And so I think our parents, I would hope, look at it as a positive thing that we vetted the books. Many of you have put your kids in our school because of some of the concerns that you had in other schools and what they're trying to teach your kids. And we're talking about maybe gender affirmation, gender pronouns, gender identity issues, trying to plant ideas in our children's minds that are unbiblical, that you can just choose whatever gender you want. LGBTQ issues, another one, or just general worldly philosophies that can be put in our kids' minds. And so we've presented ourselves up front and take it seriously that we want what we're doing here to be different. And it was a risk that this was a secular publisher, and so it wasn't surprising that we might put some things aside and not make them readily available to the kids. And we would hope that parents probably would be doing the same thing. If you came in here with your child and we hadn't vetted anything, that you would have done the vetting. But again, some kids were there without their parents, and we wanted to take it seriously, that we just didn't put anything out in front of the child, and the child purchases something that undermines what we're trying to accomplish and undermines the faith of the family, and maybe tries to teach some philosophy to the child, albeit maybe even subtly in a lot of cases, still just certain underlying attitudes or values. And so if we're careful with what we teach our children, I think what we did as a school is very consistent with that, and I hope that that's seen as a very positive thing. And I think hopefully you see it as what you expect out of our school. You expect us to take it seriously, what we're teaching your kids, and that's what we're trying to do. And I really hope that when these types of concerns come up, that you will feel free just to come and ask us personally on these things. And sometimes what's happened is the discussion has happened amongst parents before the discussion ever happens with us, and sometimes then there's people upset or dissatisfaction over these topics when we haven't been approached to really understand what we're trying to do. So just really encourage you to consider talking with us. But we're excited going forward. Again, Mr. Slava and some potential new staff that we're talking with going forward, and not too long looking to next year when the re-enrollment period begins. And so I'm hoping that we're just going to really continue to work positively with your families and for the benefit of your children. And I trust that we're a blessing to the Christian community in providing a Christian education option for your children. And so thank you, and we look forward to continuing to help you. Have a good day. Bye now.